Corren's earliest memory was of cold stone and whispered voices. The Draelus family manor steps where he had been found as an infant, wrapped in a simple cloth that barely concealed the golden sigils shimmering across his skin. The proud and devout Draelus family took him in, raising him as their own, believing that his celestial markings were a sign that he was meant for their home. Since childhood, Corren had quietly taken pride in his Aetheris heritage. His golden markings shimmered like liquid sunlight, setting him apart, but never making him feel like an outcast. With a strong desire to help, he grew into a kind and determined young man. As Corren grew, the Draelus family nurtured him with care and a sense of purpose. The city of Skuld valued strength and honor, and it was expected that those with the blood or blessings to protect would answer the call. Although young, Corren showed a natural aptitude with a blade and a steadfast heart. It was only natural then that he would begin training to become a knight, a path both daunting and honorable. Corren learned the art of swordsmanship under the careful guidance of the Draelus family. Although still a trainee, he bore the weight of responsibility, hoping to one day serve and protect his city. One morning, the sun rose like any other day, and the cool sea breeze drifted through the city. Children laughed in the streets, merchants prepared their stalls, and life hummed with routine. Then, without warning, the sky tore open. A sudden flood of crimson light poured from the horizon, engulfing the city in a burning, blood-red glow. The world appeared to freeze. Hearts hammered in chests, and the air grew thick with a strange tension, as if the very atmosphere held its breath. Mothers hushed their children, shopkeepers paused mid-task, and even the sea seemed still beneath the fiery sky. For days, the red lingered, relentless and unyielding in its presence. An unknown presence hung heavily in the air. Whispers grew into murmurs, rumors spread, but no one could say what the red sky meant. Tension gripped the city as defenses were bolstered, and the guards kept a wary watch. Corren pushed himself harder in his training, the weight of the unknown pressing down on him more each day. Although still a trainee, a quiet determination grew within him. Would he be ready for whatever lay ahead? Beyond Skuld, nations scrambled to unravel the meaning behind the crimson sky, dispatching spies, scholars, and soldiers to seek answers. However, those who probed too deeply into the mystery vanished without a trace. After days beneath the burning red sky, the crimson haze finally began to fade, settling into a sickly pale ash that hung low over the world like a shroud of death. The air was heavy with uncertainty, and uneasy whispers grew louder everywhere. No two witnesses agreed on what had caused the terrifying sky. Some claimed that it was a harbinger of war, a cruel warning from the gods. Others whispered of shadowy shapes, towering, half-formed silhouettes that stirred within the fading haze, glimpsed just beyond the edge of sight. Fear and speculation intertwined, casting a deeper shadow over the world than the pale ash that blotted out the sun. Whispers drifted from distant lands, revealing strange and terrible threats emerging beyond familiar borders. Kingdoms spoke in hushed tones of massive golems, towering constructs of stone and ancient magic, marching through their lands, leaving ruin in their wake. Soldiers returned with tales of an unstoppable force, their eyes haunted by things that defied explanation. Although details were scarce and scattered, one truth became clear. The crimson sky was only the first sign of a calamity spreading across the world. As days stretched into weeks beneath the pale ash sky, Skuld underwent a transformation. The once lively streets grew quieter, and conversations hushed as rumors of approaching doom spread like wildfire. Markets thinned, and the clang of weapons being sharpened replaced the usual clatter of daily life. Corren found himself caught between the familiar comforts of training and the growing dread that the city's defenses might not hold against the approaching army. Each dawn, he rose with renewed determination and pushed harder with his sword. Although the future was uncertain, Corren vowed to stand firm, whatever the cost. The nights grew colder as the ash sky dimmed the sun's warmth. In quiet moments, Corren found his thoughts drifting beyond the clang of steel and drills of his fellow trainees. The stories spreading through Skuld, the whispers of destruction beyond the horizon, and the impossible size of the golems pressed heavily on his mind. He had never faced true danger before, only the controlled challenges of training. The unknown now loomed just outside the city walls. He often walked the city's ramparts at dusk, staring out toward the distant horizon where the sun once set. Now nothing but a war-torn battlefield. There, he wondered if the gods were watching, or if they had abandoned the world to its fate. His family's faith was strong, but Corren wrestled with doubt about his strength, what his future might hold, and whether he could live up to the legacy of those who raised him. During a fateful battle near the city's walls, Corren's world crumbled. The Draeless Manor, once a proud symbol of light and faith in Skuld, now lay engulfed in flames. The grand stone walls, etched with holy runes and golden filigree mirroring the shimmering markings on Corren's skin, cracked and shattered beneath the relentless assault of the golems. The scent of burning timber and scorched earth filled the air, mingling with the sharp clang of metal and distant screams. Corren ran through the chaos, desperately searching for his family. The echo of his mother's gentle voice was swallowed by the roar of destruction, and his father's once steady footsteps drowned beneath the thunderous march of the golems. He found the great hall reduced to rubble, the tapestries torn, and the sacred relics smashed amongst the debris. He saw his father, gravely wounded, attempting to shield his mother from a collapsing beam. Corren's heart clenched as he lunged forward, but the ground beneath them trembled violently. The beam crashed down before he could reach them, silencing their cries for help forever. Alone amidst the ruins, Corren fell to his knees, his golden markings dimming beneath the weight of grief. The proud family that had raised him and the home that had sheltered him were gone. The city of Skuld was not spared from such horrors. All around him, the golems marched forward, crushing hope beneath their unyielding steps. Friends, neighbors, and countless innocents were swept away by the relentless tide of destruction. That night, Corren's spirit was broken. The fire that once burned brightly within him was extinguished, leaving only cold ash and shadows. In this despair, as he wandered the ruins of his shattered life, a presence found him, a shadow in the darkness, watching patiently. As he knelt among the ruins, a shadow fell over him, not from the golems, but from something colder, sharper. The air appeared to freeze. Amidst the carnage stood a woman, her form shifting in the moonlight. "Your grief sings to me, child. Allow me to quell your despair." She offered him enough power to rend the golems apart and end the slaughter. All she asked was for his unyielding service, to be her hand in this dying world. Desperation drowned out any hesitation. He agreed, and the moment he did, his vision filled with darkness, and when it cleared, he held more power than he had ever known. With her magic, he cut through his enemies like a knife through butter. He fought alongside his fellow knights, defeating the golems one by one. However, for everyone slain, another took their place. For better or worse, though, The line was finally held, and it seemed like they could hold them at bay for now. The night after the battle that shattered his world and took his family, Corren wandered the smoldering ruins of his once home, heavy with grief but resolute in purpose. The power bestowed upon him by the mysterious benefactor was new and unfamiliar, yet her presence offered quiet comfort amid desolation. It was she who gently urged him onward, whispering of a purpose beyond the ashes of his past. With no home to return to and no family left to protect, Corren made a silent vow to carry the light of his lost kin and stand against the relentless destruction. He carved his way through the battlefield, searching for any source of this power, this catastrophe, seeking an end to this madness. His footsteps guided by the faint glow of his golden markings and the steady voice of the shadowy figure. The world beyond Skuld was vast and scarred, but lives were still to be saved, towns to be defended, and secrets to be uncovered. With a sword in hand and newfound power coursing through him, Corren began his pilgrimage across the shattered continent, seeking those in need and striking against the golems wherever they appeared. Corren's journey stretched across the shattered continent, with each day presenting a new trial beneath skies still heavy with ash. Although his power was formidable, it was not a gift he wielded lightly. Every strike against the relentless golems bore the weight of countless lost lives, including his family. Guided by the quiet counsel of the womanly figure he had since discovered to be the matron of ravens, Corren moved with purpose but without haste. Villages left in ruin whispered stories of destruction, and in those broken places, he found the faces of the innocent. Survivors huddled behind crumbling walls, children with eyes wide with fear, and elders mourning what little remained. With every act of mercy, he protected those he could, lending his strength where it was needed most, and dismantling the towering golems piece by piece. Yet the enemy seemed endless, their ranks swelling with every battle, as if their fury could never be sated. Through visions granted in quiet moments, the matron revealed shards of truth. A god of war, a force consumed by wrath, wreaked havoc not just upon mortals, but sought the undoing of all divine order. Corren bore this knowledge in silence. The burden was heavy, but his resolve was unbroken. Although his travels were solitary, Corren's spirit was not lonely. He carried the hope of those he saved and the memory of his lost home. Each step was a vow renewed, to stand firm against the encroaching darkness, to be the sword that guards the fragile light in a world slipping toward ruin. As months passed, Corren grew in strength and wisdom, and his connection to the Raven Queen deepened. Yet even as his power flourished, so too did the shadow of the god of war's relentless march, looming ever closer and threatening to consume all that remained. One dusk, beneath a sky the color of pale ash, Corren crested a ridge and saw a flicker. It lasted only a heartbeat, a faint bleeding of red across the horizon, gone before he could draw a second breath. But it was enough. That night, the matron's voice found him again. "The god of war is no longer content to rage," she said. "Now he reaches for the foundations. What stands will fall, not just kingdoms, but everything." In the days that followed, his travels took a different shape. Villages were no longer simply in danger, they were disappearing. A fishing port he had visited only weeks earlier was gone, not burned, not buried, simply absent, as though some unseen hand had torn it from the shore and cast it into the void. The final proof came when he reached Armath's crown, once the jewel of the eastern trade routes. The city walls still stood, but within them was nothing but desolation. No streets, no markets, no bones, just a hollow expanse where the heart of the city once lay. The ground ended abruptly at the edges of the absence, cut away in clean, impossible lines. From that moment, there was no more wandering around. Corren began to move with purpose, no longer simply answering cries for help, but racing ahead of the disaster, determined to save what and who he could before the inevitable came crashing down. The first sign that something was amiss was not fire or thunder, but silence. The wind that carried the sense of distant seas and the hum of life across the land stopped. Corren felt it in his bones before he saw it, an unnatural stillness pressing down, heavy enough to make the air taste like metal. Then the sky cracked. It was not lightning, not truly, more like the firmament itself splitting to reveal something beyond it, as if shards of the sky bled through jagged seams, widening with each heartbeat. Corren instinctively reached for the hilt of his sword, knowing that steel would be useless against what came next. The ground beneath him lurched, as if the continent itself was shying away. Far on the horizon, entire ridgelines folded inward, swallowed by a yawning tear in the universe. From these wounds, the golems emerged, towering constructs of stone, their forms crude yet terrifying in their scale. They moved with grim purpose, each step pounding the earth like a war drum. A calm, certain, almost gentle voice stirred in his mind. It begins. The god of war tests his reach. This is not a conquest. It is erasure. In the distance, cities crumbled in moments, swallowed by the advancing golems and the rifts they marched from. Magic flared in desperation. Brilliant shields, torrents of flame, spears of ice. But each defense shattered like glass against the god's rage. For the first time, Corren felt something he had not felt since the night of the manor's fall. Not grief, not anger, something colder. A deep, gnawing certainty that this was only the beginning. The seams in the sky tore wider, spilling not light but absence, a hollow darkness that drank in color and sound. The sky's hue bled back into the heavens, searing and unnatural, bathing the land in a warlike glow. The ground convulsed again, this time violently enough to throw Corren to his knees. Splits raced through the soil, devouring both roads and farmland. The horizon was no longer a line, but a jagged maw of a collapsing landmass. He ran. Not away from the destruction. There was nowhere to run to, but toward the nearest settlement, clinging to the cliffs. People were already spilling into the streets, some carrying children, others frozen in place, unable to comprehend the scale of what was to come. The first golem reached the town. Its stone limbs moved with impossible speed for something so massive, and every step shattered the ground beneath it. Corren darted into its path, blade drawn, not with the hope of victory, but to buy seconds for those still fleeing. The fight ended before it began. His strikes chipped at the stone, but did nothing to halt the golem's advance. A massive arm swung toward him, and only a desperate roll prevented him from being crushed. "Do not waste yourself here," her voice urged in his mind, steady in the midst of chaos. "The god's will cannot be met with steel. You must survive to strike at his heart." He hated the truth of it. Even as he backed away, he watched the town vanish into ruin. Walls crumbling, streets splitting, lives snuffed out in an instant. The land began to twist. Towers of rock jutted upward as if being dragged by invisible hands. Entire forests folded inward and vanished into rifts. The air was thick and heavy, bending light in strange ways as the edges of reality warped. Then came the sound, a deep, resonant groan that was not from the earth or sky, but from the fabric of the plain itself. The world was tearing apart. its structure unraveling under the gods' relentless assault. "It will not stop until nothing remains," she said, the first trace of sorrow touching her voice. "The plane is dying, Corren." At that moment, as a second rift opened not 100 paces away, he understood. This was not a battle to be won here. This was the opening strike in a war against existence itself. The world was collapsing within itself. The towers crumpled into ash. The sky tore in jagged lines of light, and the ground heaved like the death throes of some colossal beast. The rift's pull had become unbearable. It wanted to drag everything into the void beyond. Corren stumbled, his legs giving way beneath the crushing force. He slipped and began to fall, deep into the swirling maw. As he fell, "Little crow," whispered a voice. The voice was not loud, but it cut through the chaos like a blade through silk. He turned, scanning the smoke and fire, and there she was, framed in a corona of fractured light. Her form flickered, and parts of her dissolved into dust that streamed away into the rift. "I am giving what remains," she said, and though her face was calm, there was no mistaking the finality of her tone. "The god of war will not have you. Not yet." She came closer, each movement leaving streaks of light in the air, as if her life was burning away faster with every breath she took. "Fly, little crow." Before he could protest, she touched his chest with her hands. Agony flared, not from pain, but from the unbearable force of her essence flooding into him. The air screamed as the rift devoured her light. The world fractured, fire, sky, and stone snapping into impossible shapes, and then shattered entirely. Corren hit the ground hard. The air was thick with salt and rain. Grass whispered in the wind beneath an unfamiliar gray sky. He gasped, clutching his chest, and felt a new weight on his hand. A ring, cold silver, veined with faint threads of shadows. Her power still hummed faintly within it, a whisper of what she had once been. He looked back. There was no rift, no ruins, no sign of her. Just the horizon of this strange new land.